Good morning, and I'm actually making it here in the morning, which is a big deal for me on the weekend at this point. My lighting is messing with me big time. So, if you saw my title, that is in part because I asked you guys the other night, do you really want to hear me tell stories or do you just want to see me do makeup? So, I am sorry that the vote is as strong as it was because I have a significant amount of stories that I am about to send your way. And this is one of my favorite ones because it was probably one of the more embarrassing things that happened to me in my life. So while I am telling you this story, I'm going to go in with my makeup. So I'm priming my eyes. I'm going to this is my absolute everyday eye at this point. And that's part of the reason that I haven't been here doing a lot of eyeshadow tutorials, because the honest answer is this is pretty much the same one I've been doing every single day. But Olympic superstar's dog that crushed my soul. If you have been here for a minute, you know that I did a documentary with Aly Raisman. And I'm going to be full honest here. I'm just going to hit my brow bone and into the crease with a light shade so I can blend easier. So I'm going to be fully honest here. I have not followed the Olympics since, I don't want to say Mary Lou Retton days because I'm not quite sure if I was even alive then, to be honest. I know I was. That was probably the 80s. But I haven't followed it in a very long time. So as amazing and incredible and powerful as I know Aly Raisman is, that for me was actually not from the Olympics. That was from watching her testify when she testified against Nasser. So when I met this amazing young woman that to me is pretty much a kid, I was not starstruck for her Olympic record. I was starstruck because she actually was one of the motivating factors that allowed me to get involved in the world of advocacy. Watching her testify, watching her give her victim's impact statement actually is one of the big things that convinced me that I needed to use my voice too. So fast forward to having watched this girl on television give her victim's impact statement, I have now gone through the last couple years of being immersed in the world of advocacy. This is Cafe. I'm just popping it in the crease here. And now I am asked to take part in this documentary, which is with this, to me, advocate superstar. So a lot of you may know her from Olympics. One of the cool things about Aly, and this is one of the things I thought, oh, that's cool, we'll have this in common. One of the cool things about Aly was the fact that if any of you happen to follow her, you would know that she, like me, so I'm thinking this is something we're going to connect on, she, like me, is very much into her dog. Her dog is probably one of the biggest things that she uses to heal herself. Dogs are phenomenal. I'm just going to flip this brush around and I'm going to pick up some of this cream shadow. So cream shadow, by the way, on my lid because that helps me save a lot of time in doing the work to keep it nice and deep. So weirdly, now there's a lot of stuff about filming things that none of it was fake, but a lot of it was prompted. So she comes in this house. I had already filmed for probably a full 8 hours at that point. She comes in the house with her makeup crew, and they ask me to kind of stay away from meeting her. This was just in a rented kind of estate house down in Potomac. And they said, we don't want you guys to meet until you're on camera. So we want that to be a very genuine thing. So staged, but not, right? So I am trying to stay away from where she's getting ready. And her mom was there and her dog, Milo. Her dog, Milo, is, I think, a form of a bird dog. I would have to go look again. He's an awesome little guy. He's still a puppy. And I'm a huge dog person, right? So we're finally at the point where Aly Raisman is ready. Olympic superstar is ready. And they're going to allow me to meet this person in kind of the foyer of the house before we walk in and we're on camera. But they still don't really want us talking at that point. Back into that same brush, I'm going to pick up this kind of dark, rich color. And I'm just going to go over my lid where I already put down that cream shadow. So now we're standing together in the foyer, me, her mother, and her dog, yet we're still supposed to not really talk to each other because they want that genuine moment just seconds later. However, there's a dog in the situation, and I'm not allowed to talk to the human that's standing right there, but nobody told me I was off limits with this dog. And I was excited about that because Milo was actually going to sit on the couch and be part of this entire interview. And so I literally, in my dress pants and heels that I never wear, I'm crouched down onto the foyer pretending that I don't see the Olympic superstar standing right next to me. And I'm having a good old time with her dog because dog. I'm just going to use this brush and blend in the crease a little bit. So Milo and I are bonding, full on bonding on the floor seconds before we walk out. And he, like I said, is puppy, so he's super playful, and we were playing around. We walk out onto the set, and I sit down in my chair. Aly sits on the couch, and Milo pops up next to her, and that was the intended presentation of the way they wanted that scene to work, that Milo, her therapy dog, essentially is going to hang out on the couch and quietly listen. And Milo betrayed me in such a huge way in that moment because he and I had been buddies, but he decided, again, this was going on around the corner, so nobody knew that Milo and I were already cool. He decided to behave as though I was a very dangerous stranger. He sat on the couch right across from me and, whoop, turned it around. And he literally would not stop growling and barking at me. And everybody took it as, oh gosh, Milo, she's okay. It's okay. She's not going to hurt you. I knew the dog just wanted to play with me. The dog was upset because here was this person who was seconds ago practically rolling around on the floor in the foyer with him. And now he's literally 3 feet from me, just sitting there at full attention, nonstop, bark, 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 growl, like, come at me, you were just playing with me. There is sound crew, videographers, directors, all these people standing there fully believing that Milo knew something about me that nobody else did, and they had to remove the dog from the set, the whole deal. And the entire rest of the time, I just kept being mortified that a room full of people thought that me and this dog had some kind of issue or the dog was on to me. That was my story. I have never had a dog not like me, and Milo likes me too. But a whole room full of people thought that there was definitely something going on, and Milo was trying to let us all know about it. So that was my experience with that. I would love to share more with you guys about that entire experience. And actually, there's somebody in this group that I would like to talk to before I have a lot of that conversation, but it was an absolutely incredible experience and one of the most healing things in the world. The reason I always say I use my voice is to encourage other people to do the same thing, because the honest answer is when you talk about it, you find you're not alone. And that brings me to one other kind of quick thing that I wanted to mention is that I switched to mango, by the way, just because I felt like my makeup was sitting on my skin. And if you ever find that your foundation starts to look like it's sitting on your skin, so you get that kind of cakey surface, fact of the matter is you probably need to shade down a tiny bit darker and see if that solves the problem, because I was 100% convinced that I was sandy, and I'm not. I'm mango. But back to talking about things. I cannot even begin to tell you guys how thankful I am that I put out that little SOS last night in a makeup beauty group, and 30 plus women came forward to say, I have been there too, and here is my advice for you. Thank you. That's honestly, that's all I can say is thank you, because whether you see it or not, it's so rare that we want to share the negative things. And the fact of the matter is, we're all sharing the highlight reel of our life on Facebook. And so it's hard to know if the things that you're experiencing or the things that you're going through are actually common, normal, if you're alone, if you should be ashamed or afraid to speak up because you're somewhat different. The fact of the matter is, you will find people, when you speak up, you will find people with commonality. And so thank you for everybody who essentially bravely shared the fact that you have been through something abusive too. That's what that was. And that's why it was so huge to me, because I don't even know if those of you that shared or everybody that shared regularly shares, but you were willing to share to help somebody else. And I'm not crying today because I'm trying to be quick about this, but I just wanted you to know how much it meant to me. It was a really big deal. And the young woman who had reached out to me is going to continue to struggle, I am sure. But because of last night and because of all of you, she knows that she is not struggling alone, and that it is not crazy to feel the way she did, and it is not crazy to continually give chances when we shouldn't. It's human nature, and so many of us have done it. So that's the big lesson that I wanted to share there. I really appreciate it, and I'm not going to cry. So, all right. The only other thing, I have so many stories saved up, it's not even funny. I honestly wasn't even going to come and do this morning because I was puking my guts out last night. And here's why. I have said for years that when I talk crap about things or situations, I'm not big at talking crap about people. I'm not saying I don't. I'm definitely human. But when I say, like, they were so stupid for doing this or whatever it might be, every time then I find myself in that exact same situation, my expression is always, because of some comedian back in the 90s, my expression is always, that was God flicking me in the forehead, right? Because he was saying, that's why you don't say stuff about things like that, because then it happens to you. So there are people that are considered my employees in this group. And if you think I'm talking about you, I'm talking about you. The biggest reason that people call off at my surgical center is something that I laugh about all the dang time, is food poisoning. I have never met a bunch of women in my entire life that get food poisoning on the regular. Now, let me tell you why food poisoning is a good thing to get if you want to be off work. Because it's not contagious, right? So when you feel better tomorrow miraculously, because that's how food poisoning usually works, then you're fine to come back because it's not contagious. I don't know where these people eat, but they all eat at the same place, because food poisoning is a very common ailment. And I came down with it last night. The really shitty part about it, excuse my language, is, I mean, and that is part of the issue, but the really crappy part about it was I just had this conversation with somebody Friday complaining about the constant food poisoning issue with my employees. And yesterday I actually walked down to Color Fest, and anybody who lives in this area knows that Color Fest is a thing. It's a thing. So not this year, but years past, that it's been over 100,000 people would come to the tiny town that I live in and eat street vendor food, essentially. And this particular street vendor, after he asked me if I was single, gave me my corn dog, and then proceeded to have a full-on verbal fight with one of his employees, who I did walk over to later. This employee ran away from the truck, cussing, effing this, effing that, F you, literally said, you're going to wake up tomorrow morning dead, takes off his apron, takes off, and then a couple minutes later, he's back and he's flipping more burgers and pulling out some more sausages. But I walked up to him and I said, hey, that takes a lot of character, whether you're right or wrong. But what I discovered as I bit into my corn dog was that the center was completely cooled. But the issue with me returning that was there was a lot of drama going on behind the scenes. I didn't want to cause any more issues, and so I finished my corn dog. And at about 10:30 last night, I started profusely vomiting. And the vomiting was not because of the corn dog. The vomiting was because I constantly give shit to people who use food poisoning as an excuse. And that's where I landed. I landed myself with a little food poisoning. And I feel better now, and I will still have issue with every food poisoning story, because the honest answer is the last time I had food poisoning, and I'm not a very discerning eater. It's not as though I'm bougie or picky. I have a 5-second rule like the best of us, right? I'm not worried about what I put in my mouth usually. That is left open to a lot of misinterpretations. I'm not picky about food, unless it's onions or peppers. But I've had food poisoning now twice in my entire life, and this is a public service announcement to any of the girls that work for me at the surgical center. I've had food poisoning twice in my life, and I'm 45 years old. So I still don't believe you. That's the end of that story. Anyway, my husband's away for the weekend, and last night I got scared in the house for the first time. And it's not that I'm here by myself. My son is here. Let me pull out real quick. I've been using a combination brow, and I can't find my pencil now. But the combination is a brow pencil. And then on top of that, I'm using that brow stamp. I cannot find the pencil anywhere. But I got scared last night, and that's not normal for me. And I'm not sure if it was the scary movies that I've been watching, or I don't even want to say. There's a lot of reasons why I was scared last night, and I felt silly. So at what point should we no longer, at what point when is it rational fear to be scared by yourself at night, I guess? Because I feel like right now I have more of a reason to be afraid at night because my fears are rational fears. Like Candyman, that's what I was sure of last night. So my question is, at what point do you ask for help when your fear is something like that? Because my 22-year-old son was downstairs and I needed somebody to check the house, but I was afraid to walk by any mirrors because I had terrified myself that bad at that point. And I really, honestly, am a chicken for whatever reason the older I get. I used to have no issue with scary movies, with scary rides, with whatever it might be. And now the older I get, I think the issue is I'm somewhat afraid of being physically hurt now. Even okay, so snow skiing or inner tubing behind a boat. I'm not going to lie and tell you that my husband drags me gingerly across the water. He does try to kill me, so I should have some sense of normal, healthy fear. But at this point, I'm terrified of breaking a bone and not being able to go to work the next day. So I'm wondering if the real thing is once you have financial responsibilities that your fears get a little more real, because I did break my arm skiing last year. So this is that brow stamp, and I've just been taking it and making some brow hairs in the front of my brow and then filling in a little bit as I go. To be honest with you guys, I was 100% down, and I even paid my deposit. I just haven't scheduled it yet, but I was 100% down for getting my brows done, microblading and powder brow. But what I've realized is, and even when I went for that appointment, what she told me is that you have a ton of brow hair, and she was surprised really that I wanted to do that. And I was surprised that anybody said I had a ton of brow hair. But just like all the hair on my chin that I'm newly finding, I think that the collagen I have been taking has made a huge difference in my brows as well. So if that's something that you've been struggling with, it might be struggling with, meaning your brows. Collagen might also be something that'll work really well for that too, because I had completely lost pretty much the outer third, and it has almost completely filled back in. There is a trade-off, but as we all know, I keep This is whatever was left from last night. As we all know, I keep tweezers in my car, and the trade-off is that I do absolutely sense using collagen. Also, I'm getting older, so whether it's a collagen or not, I don't know. But I absolutely have more chin hair now than I did a year ago. I'm also a lot healthier. So all that, I mean, I don't know why being healthier and all of that has to reward you with something you don't want, like chin hair, but it is part of the trade-off. So, all right, still with Thrive. That's all I'm gonna do. I intended originally to go back down to Color Fest today with my son and his wife, but my shoes were too small yesterday, is the honest answer, aside from the vomiting. My shoes were too small, and whether it is a reasonable excuse or not, when my son reached out last night, I said my big toenails hurt. So I can't go today. My big toenails hurt. This is coming from the woman that complains that when her staff gets food poisoning, they can't come to work, but today my big toenails hurt really bad. So, all right. That's it. I wanted to see if you guys would be willing to help me make some decisions on my Stitch Fix stuff that comes in. I thought it would be a good way to show you all exactly what kind of stuff Stitch Fix has. And it would help me to justify my keeps to my husband because the vote said yes. So it is definitely a selfish thing to, if you haven't seen a million people do this, it is one of the best tricks in the world. Use a dry spoolie, and if you get mascara underneath your eye or above your eye, wait for it to dry for a second, and then just flick it away. But the waiting for it to dry for a second is the actual key. But that's it, guys. I hope you have a great Sunday. I am really excited for my husband to be back. I have some hilarious stories about him coming up because he's just Southern funny, and I hopefully will see you soon. If you have any questions about the makeup, let me know and I'll hook you up. There's a bunch of new colors out, and there's so many nice new palettes that I want to show you. I have them all here, but they're still boxed up. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great one. Thanks for sticking around, and more than anything, thank every single person who participated in helping a young woman find worthy things about herself so that she can walk away from anybody that ever makes her feel less than. And I don't know that the only young woman that affected is the one that I asked you guys about. And that's why it's so freaking important to me that you guys share the things that you've been through, because you'll help everybody else right through it behind you. So that's it. Have a good one. I'll talk to you guys soon.